All right, so handout for everybody. Jen, Nate, Clara, Shauna, thanks for doing that. And I say that because here in a second, yeah, that might be two, I guess. This text we're about to read has a hint of confrontation. And so it's also, I guess, with that, it's kind of a hint of negativity. And I appreciate y'all's question to ask, what good have you seen God do this week? Because clearly, when we talk to a friend or when we are talking to somebody at work or we watch the news, it is, or any TV or social media for that matter, like it is very easy to find the negative and to gravitate that direction instead of seeing the positive. And you can see the positive in all those places still, but it's just a good reminder in here to just say, hold on, what have you seen God do through a person showing up or through a circumstance or through scripture and whatnot? So I hope today, I don't mean to focus just on the negative of the passage, but I hope we can find the other route. So we're going to be Matthew chapter 6. Matt finished up 5 last week. So I don't know if I'm going to overwhelm you a little bit. I'm a little overwhelmed by this thing on my face, but handout and PowerPoint and whiteboard, if you can handle all three today, okay? It's a lot, but you okay, Lily? I'm glad you're sitting down.
Sure, I may have to leave for a minute.
Feel free, there's the door, okay?
Reset.
Very complicated.
It is. We're still in the Sermon on the Mount. Silly story from this week when we talk about how busy the week is. I was looking at this text 2 weeks ago, and I had my note sheet of all the words. Some of them we're going to go through, but I sat down at my desk. I think it was Thursday, and I was trying to wrap this up. I was like, oh, my desk is a mess. Hold on, I don't need that anymore. Like that was junk mail, and I was pulling these papers together, put it all together, put it in the trash can. I was like, okay, now I can start the sermon. Where's my notes? And they were in the trash can. So dug those out and then took a deep breath and feel like that was what gave me a chance to laugh, I guess, and figure out where we were going with this stuff. So anyway, we're going to be just the first 4 verses, if you want to turn to Matthew 6, 1 through 4. And who would like to read that, please?
Beware of practicing your righteousness before people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. Thus, when you give to needy, sound no trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, and that they may be praised by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. So when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees the secret will reward you.
Yep, thank you. All right. What is this passage about?
Giving?
Giving, all right.
Pride.
Pride, okay. What else?
Giving humbly.
Humility, okay, the opposite of both of those, or of that one, yeah. Okay. Could be the adjective to describe the way that you're doing it, or it could be the themes. Any other ones?
I get a relationship between you and God, like a personal relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's in there.
Your motive, like where your reward is.
Okay. Yep. Any other words come to mind for it? Pride, one word I thought of was bragging or credit, I guess. When in that pride and in that motive, there's almost the look at me is mentioned. All right. So I listed off a whole bunch of the words and I wanted to study them. But I think before I go through that, let me read the note from this. This is a commentary that I think Matt talked about starting to go through this again next year. It's called the Torah Club, where you read part of the Torah, part of the prophets, and part of the New Testament, all three at the same time. Not literally at the same time, but all three. And it allows you to go through the Bible, not super fast, like a year, like everybody sometimes reads the Bible in a year, is kind of anxious. But anyway, this is the commentary to that reading program, and it's pretty great. So let me read what it had to say about giving. Listen to this. There's 8 types of giving. One level of giving is the person that gives sadly and reluctantly. I'm sure we have all found ourselves in that spot where we didn't necessarily want to give up something or do something. The next one, the one who gives less than is fitting, but still gives it cheerfully. The one who gives only what they have been asked to give, nothing more. The next level, the one who gives before being asked. Interesting thought. The one who gives in such a way that he does not know who is receiving it. Okay? The one who gives in such a way that the receiver doesn't know who's giving it. That's a switch from the first one. I read what one story one rabbi had to say was, if you had a gate in front of your house or a fence, and poor or needy knew they could find money there, and you would put a coin, it was an old tradition, you'd put a coin on the gate, on the horizontal part of the gate. And the thing was, if a person passing by went to grab it, they might not know who was giving it. I mean, they maybe know your house, whatever, but the person that gave it might be able to see them come and grab it through the door. Well, that puts the ownership back here. The person who's giving knows who it is. Then they said the opposite of that is if you have a coin and you drop it while you're walking, the person who picks it up behind you knows who gave it, but the giver doesn't know who received it. And so it's a flip-flop of those two ways of looking at this idea of giving. And credit, right here, right? So interesting how those two are differentiated. This is number 7. The person that gives in total anonymity so that he does not know who's going to receive it. The receiver also does not know who gave it. That seems like the most parallel to this idea of don't you let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. And then last, the one who does not give charity at all, but helps the poor rehabilitate themselves by lending them money, taking them into a partnership, employing them, giving them work. For in that way, the end, which is charity, the end is achieved without any loss of self-respect at all. So it kind of takes it to a whole new level. You're not just giving out of your generosity or a person's need. One comment I read was, if you ever gave money to a person in a public place where other people could see that moment, it shamed that person. So the idea is it almost better to not give them money at all, because any help that you've given them, you've shamed them at the same time. And I know I'm really like painting this picture of the person that needs to receive, but in a sense, we've all been in that moment where we need to receive, and it may not be finances. So anyway, I wanted to catch some commentary just to kind of open our minds up. We always talk about context, and if you think about maybe this isn't just about giving somebody $1, because that ending suggestion is maybe your relationship with them, not just with God, your relationship with them is more important in the end than how many pennies or dollars or whatever was part of the exchange. Maybe you can lift them up overall.
Is that the fish thing?
The fish?
Teach them to fish?
Yeah, but did you ever hear the second part of that? So Walt's asking, what is the phrase? If you give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. And the second part of that is wait until he comes and asks you to stock his pond for him. And that's the sarcasm. That's part of, sometimes we get into that. And I wanted to mention this today. These 8 levels, I think we've all found ourselves in there when we say, I'll give, but do I get a tax credit when I give? Or a couple weeks ago, and I actually have a thank you card in my vehicle right now. I've been trying to go find the person to give it to him, because we had people donate for that chili cook-off a couple weeks ago, and somebody got mad. We had 3 levels of donations. You got your name on the board if you were one level. You got your logo on the back of our t-shirt if you were another level, and we gave you a plaque if you were Big Bango, whatever. Big Pepper, I think is what the title was. A person got mad because they gave their donation too late for us to get their logo on the shirt. They got mad their logo was not on our shirt. They wanted to give only because of the recognition and the marketing that they got on the back end.
So who's at fault? Them or you for rewarding people
For donation.
donation?
Exactly. Back to those 8 levels. Why do we give? That's why I wanted to read those today, because I wanted to get your brains and your hamster wheels going to say, what is it about a request for you to give? Because automatically our brains start processing the request and we think, well, does the person work? Or have I given to them before? Or do I get to run this? Is this a write-off on my tax, like on my income at the end? I mean, those are the types of questions that we ask. Instead of getting down to some of them where don't even get prompted, don't even get a request, just give out of your generosity and you have no idea behind you who's receiving it. And I think the idea here is let's take the focus off of the recipient and off the giver, and let's go back to just God's prompting generosity and his provision overall. Going back to what we just saying, he keeps getting better no matter the storm, rough time in life, good time in life. All right, I gave you these handouts. I want to break down some of these words. There's 5 of them that I noticed that I want to define a little bit here. Am I tracking? Shauna, can you skip ahead 2 slides? Here we go, 5 words. All right, the first one on your handout. The first blank is the first verse, 6:1. The first word Mandy said was beware, correct? Beware. Does anybody in your translation have a different word for that?
Be careful.
Be careful. Good one. Caution.
Take heed.
Take heed. Okay. Like pay attention. Yep. Good. Okay. So any of those words will work for your first blank. The translation, when I looked up the word beware, this is the word picture, and this was incredible to me. Bring attention to it or turn your mind to it, and this is the word picture. Pay attention to it like you are docking a ship. So click the next picture, will you, Shauna? Think about this. We live on the Mississippi River right here. Think about the attention that you have to give, or a pilot has to give, when you are docking a ship. Think about the size of the cruise ships and the container ships that come into our ports here in St. Bernard and New Orleans and whatnot. And the amount of attention, take heed, the amount of focus you have to make that happen. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you have any dealings with the river, people, the ships that go across the whole ocean, when they get to the mouth of the Mississippi, there are only a handful of people here in New Orleans that are taken by boat out to the ship. They board it, and they are the captain that pilots up the river. You've heard about this? Pilot Town at the end of the Mississippi? That is a big deal. They pay people 6 figures to pilot a ship. You have to pay attention to docking and bringing a ship to land. It's a big deal. That is the word picture for this idea, this one word, beware. Pay attention that much, like millions of dollars are on the line in this one moment. That's the word picture for this idea of beware of practicing your righteousness in front of other people. That stopped me in my tracks right there. Like that is and I'm not making this up, like I went and I saw it. Beware, like you're bringing a ship to land. And I thought, that's a new one. And I think it fits for people like us who are like 1,000 yards or something, like a mile from the Mississippi River right there. And this happens every single day, 24 hours a day. That's your first blank there. Beware like you are bringing a ship to land. That kind of attention. I would say that's a pretty confrontational idea. Beware of carrying out, back to the handout, beware of carrying out your good stuff, your righteousness, your virtue, your justice. And the next blank is the word, you don't have to write this word, before, or in front of other people, before other people. This is the word picture for that one. Before somebody else means you are signifying your rank. Think about what that looks like. Military. sheriff's office, law enforcement, we have rank, and you have to pay attention to the person that you are speaking to. I went to the Algiers base one time with Rob Thomas when he was here, and I walked through, and it's a Marine Corps base. And you can see a person coming at you, what they have on the collar of their shirt. I'm sorry, right here. On the collar of their shirt, there is a symbol, and it's sewn on. And you know when they're walking towards you, if you are greeting them with hello, sir, or if they are greeting you with hello, sir. Like, you know the person you're standing before and where you are. And it's the same thing at the sheriff's office. We have a epaulette up here on top of our shoulder, and you know where that person ranks compared to you. What a shame that the same thing can happen, back to that idea of dropping a coin. If you give to somebody else charity, beware of the idea that just by doing that, you are associating yourself oftentimes above another person or a group or whatever. And that's a shame. That's why pay attention to the way that you are signifying rank is the phrase, by doing this in front of other people. That comment I made about the marketplace, it's unfortunate if you were to ever give in public because it could shame another person. That's the attention you want to have to the other person's character and their notoriety, or their embarrassment and their shame.
Could it also be like if your rank, could you also switch it to a more humble side and be like you're ranking yourself below them?
Sure. Yeah, kind of like we talked about last week. 2 weeks ago with the slap.
Yeah.
And the idea, try as hard as you can to turn the table.
Right.
Or trump card, I guess is the other. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. That was number 2. Beware of carrying out your good stuff before other people, rank other people, in order to be what? Seen. Seen. Noticed. What else you got in your Bibles? Noticed or seen? Yeah? All right. The word picture for that one, we're going to get to that in a second. Noticed or viewed like a show with admiration. Somebody told me, I don't know, again, this is a negative example, but in the last year or so, somebody told me that they had given some money away and that they had given a car away to somebody. And I thought, wow, that's cool. But the way that they were telling me, I started to internally judge them at the way that they were saying it. And it makes me, like, this verse makes me think of them with that, because I don't think they were looking for credit from me, but anytime you can say what you've done, it makes you think a certain way about another person, right? If they've been generous. And you don't want to judge someone's motives right here, but the idea of being noticed or seen, and it's like being viewed like a show where it develops admiration or you get points for what you've done. That's a pretty significant moment.
You know, on that line, I struggle with something because I don't do it as much as I used to, but I used to listen to Caleb a lot, right? And, you know, you always hear these people call and say, yeah, I went to the coffee shop yesterday and I paid for the guy behind me, and my first is that, that's BS and looking for praise, right? Mm-hmm. But then I wonder, are they trying to inspire other people to do the same thing? So
For sure.
That confusion there,
What if you said, here's an extra, whatever, $5, it's going to pay for the person 10 cars behind me. Yeah. So that I don't know who it is. Be noticed, be seen, viewed like a show. Back to the handout. Be seen by them, for then you will have no wages from your Father who is in heaven. But when you offer mercy and charity, here's the next one, do not blow a horn, strike or clap a gong, or fire a weapon. Blow a horn or a trumpet. Or fire a weapon. The other day, I turned my police radio, and you can hear the fire department channel on it, and they have a tone that goes out. And it's I didn't know this, but they tone in different ways. So if the first tone is longer than the second tone, it might mean like a medical call. But if the first one goes off quickly and the second or the third one is longer, it signifies something else, like maybe that's actually a house fire or a car accident, that kind of thing. But it's a tone, and it'll interrupt the room, it'll interrupt your conversation, etc. So I thought about that when I thought about this like the noise, kind of like the tornado siren noise. When it tones out, man, it's like interrupts your whole moment. Whatever you're doing in that moment, it is loud. Well, anybody seen this before? You know where it is? Rockies, yeah. So this is it, the countertop when you order at Rockies, and obviously it's a collection for Kiwanis. This is a decent picture of what was centuries ago in the temple. There was a loud metal, we think it was copper, trumpet, but this is what it means. It doesn't mean that a person went up in the temple to give their money and they literally pulled out a trumpet. That's the verse, right? Blow a trumpet. No, it doesn't mean that. It would mean something like this. I just think it's ironic we have one locally, but it's plastic. But if you walk up to this and you put a coin in it and it makes noise as it goes down, it would make a difference if you had a little penny, because they're lighter weight, than if you had a quarter or a $50 or something that would be louder, right? And if you think about the side of a penny is smooth, a nickel is smooth, but dime, quarter, $50, all of those have the ridges. They would all make different noises. And that might be a little less real now on plastic. But if you think about copper and bigger coins, because there wasn't paper dollars, right? Culture. The noise of whatever coin was going down that copper in the temple would make a noise. It would make a significantly different noise if it was a large coin, aka wealthier gift, than if it was a smaller coin, which would be a less valuable gift. That's the context of what that means to blow a trumpet in front of people, in front of a place. That would be the noise. No offense, I was standing right there by that box back there behind when people put cash in there today. There's no noise. We can very discreetly walk by, put it in on our way out or our way in this room, and nobody knows what you put in. Nobody is counting the amount and assigning it to your name, That's a good thing. There's anonymity in that. This trumpet thing back in the day was not anonymous. It was loud and it was very obvious. And if you were standing right next to it, everybody knew who the person was that deposited. Blow a horn, strike a gong, fire a weapon. Pretty loud moment for that blank right there. All right. Back to the handout. That was what an actor would do in a public place so that they might be, again, noticed, honored, or praised. Going back to your scriptures, anything different in your versions?
Glory.
Given glory.
They might have a glory of men.
Good one. It's a good word. I think that's a dangerous word because we've all heard that Latin phrase. Is it sola de gloria? Right? That means glory to one and only one, and that being God. The minute that we look for accolades or adoration or credit, etc., going back to this, that's a problem. The other definition of honored and praised in this blank right here is to be adorned, to impart glory, just like you said, to make renowned, or here's the last one, to render illustrious. The only time I hear people talk about render, it's when they're cooking, render the fat down or something like that. We don't use that word very often in our vocabulary today, but think about that. To render someone illustrious, to give them glory and credit and to be praised. Like that is an awkward place to be, but how often do we seek it on a daily basis? I'll scratch my back, you scratch, vice versa. To render illustrious. I don't know, that's a slippery slope. And then finish your handout. That they might be praised, honored, and given glory from those around them. For reals, they have already been given their wages. But when you share with others and give your wealth, give with stealth. All this is so your generosity can be concealed carry, like inward, because then your Father will deliver you and pay your debt and taxes. Some ad-libbing in there a little bit, or some paraphrasing, but for reals. I put debt and taxes at the end because the picture for that is actually our finances on earth, because it's human wealth. They've already been given their reward from humans rather than any type of spiritual or heaven or salvation, any type of that stuff. No, it is like they've already been given their stuff on earth. All right, so what do we do with this information? I appreciated the study this week because of those word pictures, and it took my understanding to a different place when I kind of considered what our English, this is what we talked about a couple weeks ago, remember? Actually last week. Our English version, which varies even in this room, back to the Greek, right? And then following that, back to a Hebrew understanding of these words. It's powerful to go back and look at that. Something else, though, that was said last week. What's the next slide? There was a funeral comment last week. Matt asked the question, I think, when he got up here, like Jen and Clara just asked, which was, tell me something where you saw God at work last week. And I wanted to tell this story. I was sitting back there next to Shauna, biting my tongue in the back row, because if you remember this, Tracy was over on this side. Clara told a story about understanding holidays, and that was like good for you, good for your soul to do that. Tracy said a comment about a funeral. Do you guys remember this if you were here? All right. Tracy said on Saturday, she tells us, just the day before on Friday, she went to a funeral. And it was a 92-year-old grandma. Great life, good comments about her, very sweet moment to get together with other people and to remember and celebrate. And the reason I was back there and I was biting my tongue was a coworker of mine skipped work Friday to go to a funeral of a 92-year-old grandma, blah, blah, blah. Same funeral. So I thought it was ironic, first of all, that there was that reference. But then when I realized who she was talking about, I read the obituary. Like Thursday, I read the obituary. And I knew the lady she was talking about, knew she was a grandma, knew she was a sister, knew she was a mom, obviously, knew she was a sister. The irony is I never met that lady. Go to the next picture, Shauna. I met her brother. You guys know where that picture was taken? Yeah. In the lobby, about 100 feet that direction. Different floor, obviously different furniture. That was a different time, and that was a gentleman that many of you have never seen before. I would also argue, though, a handful of people from the gathering did know him. That was the brother of the lady who died. I was sitting back there processing this comment that she was a mom and a grandma. She had a good life. She was sweet, all this stuff. And she had a wonderful funeral of her loved ones to celebrate and remember her. That was the brother, and he was a dad, and he was a grandpa and whatnot, but pretty much had no relationship with his kids or his grandkids. He lived right over here in Chalmette behind Winn-Dixie, and he died alone at his house, and he had no public funeral, and he didn't die wealthy, and he didn't get a lot of credit or accolades. Matt's comment when he reacted to Tracy, he said, what did they say about her at her funeral? And they told stories about her being generous and sweet and loving and kind. And he said, good reminder that people don't usually tell you at a funeral that it's about all the millions a person made or about all the toys and houses and all the stuff that they owned. Well, the irony about this guy, if you go to the next picture, I took that picture at his house. You know how a family will go to a person's closet and pick out their favorite thing to wear, maybe a dress for mom, or they might go buy something, but they pick out something they remember them wearing for a funeral, if you've ever done this for a family member. This might sound cheesy. I took that yellow sweatshirt out of his closet and I folded it and I put it in that chair and I took a picture because that's where he would sit, and that's one of the only shirts I ever saw him wear in cold weather. Maybe that was the extent for me personally of that guy's funeral. A handful of people from the gathering, met his daughter at the house. She took some of his like driver's license, personal possessions, but there wasn't much there. Are you seeing the stark contrast between these two stories? Brother and a sister, and they died in two completely different ways. They also lived in two completely different ways. It got me thinking when I went back to work about the idea of the phrase, the dash. You've all heard this teaching principle. And I Googled, I knew there was a poem about the dash, and I put it on the screen. And I thought we could take a second and I don't know if this is the right direction to go, but take a second and maybe we read a stanza of it in here and just use it to think for a second about those two stories and how we're living and how we find ourselves in these words right here quite often. Right here, why we do things, and right here, our relationship to God and how we come across to other people. That pretty much is encapsulated by that one idea of the dash. And if you haven't ever heard this before, there's two numbers according to your life, right? Your birth date and your death date. And the whole thing, all of it is summed up in this little bitty hyphen, and it's how you lived your life, the dash. So click that forward, Shauna, please. Will you read that, Mandy?
A read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates as a tombstone from the beginning to the end. Whoa, I can't read that fast.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, David, can you do that?
He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears, but he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years.
Abby?
For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved them know what that little line is worth.
Walt?
Where it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash.
Clara?
So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged.
Bill?
If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel.
Nate?
And be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we never loved before.
Jen?
If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that the special dash might only last a little while.
Heather?
So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's action to the rehash, would you be proud of the things they said about you to how you spent your dash?
That was good. And this, no, you're okay. Those phrases, you guys know this. It'd be cheesy, But those phrases are very true and very, appropriate questions to ask yourself, no matter if you're young, middle-aged, or old, because at every juncture in there, every chapter that you live in, there are appropriate questions to gut check yourself to say, is this where I'm at in a good way? How people are seeing me, how I'm doing in these categories right here that we just put up there. So this is the closing picture, which seems most appropriate. This is a little box trailer that the Gathering owns and had it for years. And I went to borrow it the other day and it was looking kind of rough. So the left side right here, this has been washed. Can you see this? This is clean, and the soap was kind of going down over this mud right here and green stuff. And I hadn't gotten to the right side yet, which was looking really rough. And I had to stop back and take a picture because think about it. Why would you wash a trailer? You can live life on the left side where you're clean and pristine and looking good to other people. Or you can look good and you could be rotten with everything that's going on the inside. You could kind of be half and half in the middle, aware of what's going on. Soap is working on you. But you could also be pretty crusty on the right and things not so hot. I took that, and it wasn't to show you today, and I didn't know if I'd ever use it. I just wanted to take a picture of the stark contrast between the two views. And so I don't also obviously put the picture up here to brag that I washed the trailer. I figured. Thank you for judging me, everybody. I put the picture up there to, to gut check and say, do we often enough just take a second to let God kind of work on us and wash us clean and say, are my motives good? Or am I pretty crusty with mildew? It's not just a trailer. The north side of our houses most of the time need a washing, right? Because that's what happens, and they get green. Well, we all get kind of green. And the things that we just talked about in the last 2 months, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, are those days that kind of move us towards a washing, a gut check. And you could say, like, in society, like, oh, New Year's is coming, it's a chance to go back to the gym and all those kinds of things. But, man, Rosh Hashanah is like breadcrumbs. What do you need to get rid of? What do you need to wash? Tashlik, when we throw the breadcrumbs in the water, and if you came to the 40-hour pent, then you know what I'm talking about. What do you need to wash off, and what do you need to purge? And then we try to follow up with that with Yom Kippur, white, being washed clean, white. And then we try to wrap it up with every time you step out into this fall weather that's beautiful, I think of Sukkot constantly because it's nice to be outside and everybody's talking about the weather and the pumpkins and whatnot. But the reality is every time we see the stars, the moon, anything, a roof over our heads in the rain or the air conditioner or the heat that we're all thankful for, all those things. Every time we cook food with all the appliances that we have, we know that God's provided for us just like he has for centuries for people, no matter where they were on their journey, no matter where they were traveling, but he's taking care of us. So I put that picture up there to remind each of us, whether it's something you scribbled on the note sheet today or, your journal or even these scriptures, I hope, obviously, our prayers that they just keep coming alive in us. And chapter 6, 1-4 is clearly very practical. It's just about how you give, or if you're looking for credit and adoration and credit. We could constantly ask ourselves if we're doing that with the right motive. Matt asked a few people, like, who was going to be around. He asked me the other day about Thanksgiving. And I told him this story. I said, yeah, I remember when you called me out about being applauded for my turkey. And he said, what are you talking about? And this is on Veronica. So this is like 8 years ago, probably. We cooked the turkey, Shauna and I, really Shauna, and brought the turkey to their house. So everybody else was doing sides and, they had all the table set, but Matt was hosting. So I walk in to his house with a roasting pan with a turkey, okay? And he sees it. And my other option, which you can appreciate when you're going to someone else's house, was to leave the mess at our house, break the bird down, put the turkey on a platter, and go to their house. You know what I'm talking about? All right. So I'm not exaggerating this. I remember it. He looked at me and he goes, well, you really wanted to put on a show and have everybody see you clean this or carve the turkey. I'm like, dude, I did not come over here looking for credit or whatever. I told him this story yesterday and he was like, I don't remember this at all. And I said, Matt, I didn't bring the bird to your house to show off and let everybody watch us carve the bird, for crying out loud. Everybody watches. Plus it's warm.
It's pretty.
It's pretty, but it's warmer if it's all
I
there.
mean, when somebody makes deviled eggs, don't they put a little bit of paprika on them to make them look pretty? I mean, what's
Sure.
the difference?
Sure. But you also maybe want to share the gravy out Anyway, that's from, I don't know, probably 8 years ago. So on one hand, it's kind of embarrassing that I remember that. On the other hand, just, a quiet moment with a friend that said something sarcastic, but in that there's a little bit of a jab to say, what are you going for here? And sometimes, as we mentioned, sometimes a person shows up, God uses other people, God uses comments from other people that we remember. And also God uses the experiences. When I put up that picture of Mr. Herb, he barely had anything. He barely had 2 pennies to rub together. Divorced, lonely, no relationship with his kids, not nice furniture, didn't have his house put back together very well after Katrina. And the reason we met him, the gathering, us, was because he had the very last FEMA trailer in St. Bernard Parish before they were all pulled out. And the Red Cross asked, would you guys go help him so we can so FEMA can take the trailer? That was the reason. He was that distraught. He was that frustrated with life. He was that despondent over fixing his house and being absolutely alone. Pretty rough way to live your last few years of your life. He obviously didn't choose to go through Katrina, as nobody did, but the things that you go through every day, we don't choose those things, right? We don't ask for these tragedies, or we don't ask to get poked in the eye when Claire was telling about Joey and the little things that are injuries that happen to us or the cards that we're dealt in life. But the way that you interact with people and what the dash, how it plays out is huge. And I would just point right back to this. Where do we find ourselves in these things? Are we looking for this? How's this going between us and God? And always the question right here, what are we doing? Yeah.
Like, I don't understand, like, when I'm reading the Bible, sometimes I don't really understand it that well, because I just don't. But this it's an easy read.
Yeah.
It's almost like a teaching or learning moment. Within those words, to me, it's a teaching thing.
Yeah.
That this is how you should be.
Yeah. And it says the word reward in there 3 times, I think. And it says in the, to be practicing your deeds, that word is Zedekiah, which you talked about a while back, your righteousness. So it's the same statements made about 3 or 4 times. Check your motives by what you do. It's all right stuff. It's all good stuff, but it's pretty basic. And a box trailer with some green funk on it, I feel like wraps it up. Yep. Let's pray. Father, as Lindley just said, sometimes your word is just very clear. Parts of it just aren't that complicated. But inside of each of us, whether we're judging somebody else or we're overanalyzing ourselves, thinking about our actions, we know that sometimes we just got a little bit of green funk on us and we just need some help. So as we have finished up your holidays, And we're around the corner from Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. Just interesting conversations with family and numerous nonprofit giving, donation opportunities, all those things, giving gifts to other people, carving turkeys and bringing food to other people's houses. Maybe our question isn't just, would you work on us? Because we want to have a right heart towards you. But it's also just in all those moments, could we just see you at work, your Holy Spirit changing motives, breaking into situations, making those little light bulbs go off that help us to see you at work. Help us to make it more about you and less about ourselves. We pray all this and we're thankful for this morning. Amen.